TV, radio, and the print media. And Kimberly is the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She is the TV correspondent, CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. The website is the KB Report, and she is streaming live right now at Periscope.com, Facebook, all right, and a little bit later on, YouTube. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about you, Chuck? I see you survived the Christmas holiday.
I did somehow. Not sure how. And all of a sudden, it's like, now I want to come down with summer cold. It's not summertime. I know it's getting.
I hear that's going around.
Hey, let me ask you real quick. Are you in Washington, D.C., or are you in San Diego?
I'm actually out in Rancho Mirage today because there was some golf taking place yesterday, and I was a participant.
See, that's what threw me off because I saw your Facebook picture, but it just said beautiful day, and I didn't really find out exactly where it was there. You know what I mean?
There we go. You know me. When it's sunny, I'm out golfing.
Well, I got to tell you something. Oh, and before we get into the subject, all right, One America News Network, you do reports to them, and I got to tell you, boy, they are on it now. They're doing those great specials, on what's going on, and Minton Cash and the whole thing, and Shift, and they're stepping up, and people like you help it out.
Trying, yeah.
Congratulations on that. All right. Now then, on this impeachment, that's our subject today, right?
Yeah. Let's talk.
I ran across a thing from Mark Levin, and I'm going to read you what he tweeted, all right?
Okay.
He said, "What the hell are Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans waiting for? Declare the House Democrats' impeachment null and void now. The House left for a long recess before sending the articles to the Senate. Enough. The Speaker doesn't run the country." I don't know why he just doesn't tell it like it is, like how he really feels.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what I will say is that I believe in this instant that Mark Levin is absolutely correct on this. Right now, Congress is trying to, or Nancy Pelosi and the majority in the House, they want to have their will exerted upon the Senate, and it's just not simply the case. And I'll just read this to you. The constitutional, and this is like stated in the constitutional, U.S. House of Representatives, quotes, shall have sole power of impeachment, and the Senate shall have, in quotes, the sole power to try all impeachments. There's no sharing of power. There's no, we're going to take your rules and our rules. There's none of that here. And I think that, with Pelosi stalling this process, it just goes to show you that they really don't have a crime. And, in any kind of criminal act, or especially the act of removing a sitting president who is duly elected to the Oval Office, there has to be a conspiracy to commit, and then there's like a blank, bribery, to commit, murder, whatever it may be. In this case, they're simply stating that this was an abuse of power. And the President of the United States, once money is appropriated to another country, he cannot just take that money and use it for something else, but he can hold that up. He can say, look, I'm looking out for the taxpayers, and especially since this is a country that's semi at war with Russia, so he is the commander-in-chief. He can hold this money up. Essentially, the money was released. Nobody, it's basically something that they tried to make a mountain out of a molehill, and nobody really, there's not really a crime in holding up that money, especially when you look at the American voters and you look at the taxpayers. They're probably thinking that 800 million, or just shy of $1 billion, what that could do for their community. Could that help rebuild a school? Could that help rebuild the roads? Could it provide water in California, to the breadbasket of the state of California? Those are all issues that Americans are like, why are we giving them money anyways? So, they're really stretching on this. So I think the only topic, or the only count they may have a little bit of sway over, would be the obstruction charge. And like Jonathan Turley the constitutional scholar who voted for Hillary Clinton, said, you go to the courts. These people have national security clearances. They are talking about national security. And this little exercise that the Democrats have taken the entire country through has proven nothing more than a fishing expedition that essentially is going to hurt our foreign policy down the road. Because what leader is going to want to open up and talk to the President of the United States when everything's going to be out there for public consumption? So the president does have a role to play as president. The Congress has a role, and the Congress has failed to meet their obligations to go forward with impeachment.
Yeah, and this is way off here, but if you're the president, and you're on the phone and you're discussing something, say, top secret, like, well, we may send a drone into Iran, and it's very obvious now, you can't trust the phone, you can't trust what you're saying in there.
Yeah.
There's another thing, though, two things. Number one, the Democrats did gain a little bit because there's a few people that are going to change their mind automatically because the left-wing newspapers have those.
Yeah, and this is a good example. A couple days ago, I actually went out and saw the new Clint Eastwood movie. I don't go to movies. I went to see the movie on Richard Jewell, and this was a case of the FBI, and this is a case where Mueller and also Comey played a role in the Atlanta Olympic bombings. They played a role in it. They actually said they've had to go through this whole process and ruin this man's family and his life again. They do so. So it's, to me, when you look at abuse of power, that is abuse of power. And right now you're seeing the American people looking at things of this nature and saying, can these people really, the unelected bureaucrats, really dictate where this country goes? And it looks to me that, the tide may be changing a bit here, because Americans look at this and they realize that, when the FBI comes after you, they have the full weight, power, and unlimited funds of the U.S. government to come after you. And in the end, we found out that Richard Jewell was not responsible for that bombing, but an overzealous FBI decided that they were going to get their man, and they decided he was going to be their man, and it was an easy way out for them. And the movie portrayed that. And at the end, when the movie was over, and they always roll up the credits and that, there was a little paragraph in there saying that that his family strongly felt that that Richard was basically tried and convicted in the media. So they blamed the media and the federal government on this. And what do we see right now? We're seeing the media and the federal government come after small people like George Papadopoulos and Carter Page and other people that most people don't even know who they are. And they've ruined their lives. They've ruined their reputations because they can. And they do it with malice in their heart, and they don't seem to think that there's any consequences here. And I think that this is why we're going to see some games being played behind this impeachment to try to save face for the very, very weak case that the Congress, put forth. That I'm assuming one day here in the near future will walk its way over to the Senate. But so far, nothing.
Well, and I'll tell you, in the next hour, when this show is being done, I'm going to be talking with Kelly Nelson. We're going to be talking about how they. I'm trying to be nice, but anyway, what they did, I'll put it this way, to General Flynn.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, unbelievable what they do.
Ruined his life.
Back to the movie. Back to the movie. Clint Eastwood. I give him so much credit for doing this movie.
Yeah.
And I also give him credit because I think a lot of people know and some of them don't. Hollywood was saying, don't you dare film that movie in Georgia. I think it was Georgia, I believe.
Yeah.
And because of their abortion rules, don't do it. And he said, I'm going to do it. And that's where it took place. And I'm going to go ahead and do it. Thank him for, standing up.
Well, and also, go ahead. No, I was just going to say the other thing with Clint Eastwood, it took him, more than a decade to get this movie made. He's been trying to get this movie made for quite some time because it just showed the blatant disregard for the rule of law in this country by our federal law enforcement agencies, not our police and all of that stuff, but I'm saying our federal law enforcement agencies like the FBI. And we've seen case after case, Ruby Ridge, going in and not, getting the evidence they needed in Benghazi. The FBI has really dropped the ball on a lot of this stuff. So, it pointed out the obvious. And I think especially when it's in a movie by Clint Eastwood, the people who don't understand all the weeds like you and I do, and they don't follow that, they'll watch that movie and they'll go, oh my gosh, I get it. I went with a friend. She's like, oh my gosh, I get it. Now I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
On the impeachment, okay, if listeners think about what you were hearing, and you hear it so many times, two words, pro quo, pro quo, pro quo.
Quid pro quo.
Like a nut parrot.
This for that.
Yeah, sorry. And that's what Biden was doing when he wanted to hold back billions of dollars unless you fire the prosecutor, quid pro quo, right?
Yeah.
Quid pro quo. And what is little Miss Nancy Pelosi doing? Here's what I want, and if you don't do this in the Senate trial, I'm not going to turn over the impeachment articles. And I think that's called quid pro quo, isn't it?
Yes, it would be. Yes, it would be. I mean, President Trump obviously was not a politician when he started this endeavor to run for office. And he gave the GOP leadership the first 2 years of his presidency, and he trusted that they would have the best interest of the party and the best interest of the country at heart. He had to learn the hard way. That wasn't the case. So finally, he's got some people around him that are not going to allow something to happen. There's one interesting little tidbit here that I want to talk about with the impeachment real quick. In the Constitution, they talk about that there must be a 2/3 vote to impeach the president in the Senate. And obviously the Senate's held by the Republicans, and they can afford to lose, a handful of them. However, when I actually went back and looked at this, it says 2/3 that are present. So that could actually be a little bit of an opening to say that, look, we need to have a few people not show up, and then we can get a 2/3 vote without all of the Republicans there. And then it won't be like they impeached the president, the Republicans, but they just, got caught in a blizzard somewhere in Colorado. They couldn't get into DC. That's something that could play a role here. And then the other interesting thing here is we've got all eyes are going to be on Justice Roberts, because if we go through this formal trial in the Senate, he's going to be the judge. He's going to be calling the balls and strikes, as he likes to say. He's going to call the balls and strikes. But as you and I remember, when we were taught, when Fast and Furious and Obamacare were in the headlines every single day, he ruled. He became that decision-making vote, and he allowed essentially Obamacare to continue onward. So he is a wild card in all of this, because we don't know what his rationale is going to be, and he has become, at least on this court, a swing vote, meaning he took over like the Kennedy vote. He did, we don't know which way he will go, so that could be a little bit dicey. And we know that President Trump and Roberts do have a little bit of a frayed relationship. They get along, but they don't, they're not buddies by any stretch of the imagination here. So that is another thing to kind of keep an eye on all of this. But I also believe that the fact that Nancy had not handed over the impeachment papers over the Senate before they left on their Christmas break is very telling. They're still looking for that fill-in-the-blank crime that they can put in there, because abuse of power is not a crime.
Let me ask you this. Do you know when their vacation ends? Do they come back January something or the other?
Yeah, they'll be back next week. So they will be back next week. We'll see what happens. And I think, I also do think, give this to Nancy Pelosi. She's letting her members go home, talk to their constituents, see what they're feeling. Should we move forward with impeachment in the Senate? Should we just kind of quickly put this behind us and move on? And I think that, a lot of their constituents are going to say, what, is that helping me get a job? Is that going to pay down the debt? Is that increasing my hourly wage? Are my health benefits going to be better? They're looking at those issues. Those are kitchen table issues that those people are worried about. They really could care less about Nancy Pelosi hating the president and, the media attacking the president on a daily basis. So we'll see. I mean, we haven't really heard too much from Congress here the last week or 10 days here. We'll find out next week when they come back and are ready to talk to the cameras over at CNN, and they'll, I'm sure, let us know what they're thinking and what their constituents told them, because it's a pretty big election coming up in 2020, and a lot online. I mean, there's a possibility that the Republicans could take the House back. They could stretch their lead. They could lose senators in the vote on impeachment. These are not things that bode well for the Democrats. So, I think that they're taking the break here.
Hawaiian Representative Tulsi Gabbard, she was the only one. She voted president.
Yeah.
Present, right?
Yep.
She said,
good for her.
The impeachment is only going to, what was her words, embolden the increase for his chance of re-election.
Yep.
And she said also, what you just touched on, seeing the likelihood that the House will lose a lot of seats to Republicans. Well,
yep.
Okay, that's wonderful words. We're going to take a break, and we'll continue and wrap things up with Kimberly Dvorak, the website, the KD Report. I was looking at legal analyst Greg Jarrett,
Yeah.
and he made a quote: "The farmers never envisioned a stunt pull by Speaker of the House like Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, California. That 2 decades ago it was sent over immediately within minutes. There was a vote, and they had transmitted. The Constitution is actually silent about that," added Jarrett. "It doesn't say that the Senate has to wait until it's transmitted. It's simply a Senate rule. So Mitch McConnell shouldn't be subjecting himself to extortion of Nancy Pelosi. And he says that he can, beginning in January, simply alter the rule or eliminate it entirely and set a date for the impeachment trial."
Yeah, 100% correct on that. And actually, that's one of the points here that I just wrote down, that the founders were, when it came to impeachment, they were worried that one branch of power would control the entire government, and through that power, they would disregard the voters' wishes. So that's why they wanted this to be all three branches that would have a look at this and would all play a role in this, just not one branch in particular. So Greg Jarrett's right. I actually haven't read the book. I did get it for Christmas, so I will have a look at the book. I haven't had a chance to read it. But also just to sit in, when you talk about the worrying on all of this, the politics of this superseding, the actual, event of an impeachment, this, what we're talking about, an act that's going to, basically supersede the rule of law. This country is based on the rule of law, and you used to be at least presumed innocent until, proven guilty. And here it just seems that they want to, carry on the Obama administration with the drone strikes, and we're going to be jury, judge, and executioner all in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, the American people don't understand this. And if they were truly wanting to go after this, they would have done exactly what Jonathan Turley, the constitutional scholar, again, who voted for Hillary Clinton, said they ought to do. They're seeking testimony from 3 individuals. They're looking from Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. They're looking for former NSA Director John Bolton, and they're looking for former White House Attorney McGahn. And they can start taking this and putting into the court system. They can issue subpoenas, and at that point, these people are going to be compelled to actually come before Congress and come before court and speak, because the law will prevail them to do that. The Democrats wanted to skip that. Yeah, they wanted to skip that.
Every time I hear John Bolton's name, I keep thinking, what are they doing? Looking for people that
disgruntled, yes.
Trump had an argument with?
Yeah.
But let me ask you, you wonder what their next move would be, if they impeach Trump, then they would have to figure out how to impeach Pence, maybe praying in public or something, and then the next in line for the president would be
Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, that's not going to happen, but it would be a lot of fun to cover something like that. That's not going to happen, though. Yeah.
All right, so on a personal note here, lady, did you get a red Santa Claus outfit for Christmas?
Oh, are you talking about my Mrs. Claus look today?
Yeah.
I was looking for Santa, yeah. So he found me wearing this. So.
He found you wearing that. Okay?
Yeah, he did.
I'm not going any further than that. Hey, have a very good new year.
Yep.
We'll talk to you
Next week, back in D.C., the belly of the beast next week.
Next week, it'll probably be 2020 by then.
No boy. All righty, Chuck.
About 2020, I just realized this. The good thing about 2020, we're going to be able to see things a heck of a lot clearer.
There we go. Happy New Year.